M&I Wealth Management is proud to sponsor Charlie Sykes, a wealth of information on demand when you need it most. M&I Wealth Management understands your desire for flexible, creative solutions to manage and protect wealth. Visit miwealth.com for information. M&I, redefining wealth management.
In the race for governor, some of you know we don't actually have a primary until September, but things are really heating up between Mark Neumann and Scott Walker. And the next big event will be the Republican State Convention. How big it is, I think, a matter of interpretation. The Republican Convention is going to take up an endorsement of either Neumann or Walker, and everyone that I've talked to seems to assume or believe that Walker is going to win overwhelmingly, that will get will not only get more than 60% of the vote, which I believe is the threshold, but may get over 90% of the vote, because he has such such strong grassroots support. I mean, Walker has been working this race. I was talking to another candidate for another race, and it was an off-the-record discussion, so I'm not going to go into who it was, but somebody who has been campaigning statewide. And he was saying that he was describing himself as the second hardest working candidate in the state. He said, well, I'm not in Scott Walker's league. I mean, Scott Walker's everywhere. Scott Walker is at every single event, every single Lincoln Day dinner, every meeting of the Republicans, it seems like. And then between those meetings, he's out working shaking hands at Walmart or Menards, and he's been doing this for 2 years. And this is going to pay off at the Republican convention. Up until today, Walker's advantage was so overwhelming, and I think it's kind of hard to state how much of a head start he has. At the lacrosse convention last year, I think it was in May or June, they did a straw poll, and he got something like 93% of the vote. I mean, outside of Bulgaria, you don't get those kinds of numbers, so the old Bulgaria. But his lead is so great that up until today, not a single Republican official had endorsed Mark Neumann. I mean, this is the extraordinary thing. If you try to come up with the name of the most prominent Republican supporting Mark Neumann, you can't do it. In the beginning of the campaign, it was James Clouser, who was a top aide under Tommy Thompson. And in fact, that gave a lot of prestige and a lot of momentum early on, or at least it seemed to Neumann. But Clouser eventually decided that the Neumann campaign wasn't going anywhere, was floundering, and not only dropped off the Neumann campaign, but is now supporting Scott Walker. But once Clouser disappeared, Neumann didn't have anybody. I can't name you a single prominent Republican in the state who's supporting Neumann. Now, that may not matter in a race like this, but I'm just giving you a little bit of the background. Today that changed because Neumann was able to do something, as I said, that he hasn't been able to do. He's announcing this morning that the former Speaker of the State Assembly and former State Treasurer are going to serve as his campaign co-chairs, John Gard and Kate Zieske. Now, John Gard and Kate Zieske are married to one another, just in case you had missed that little detail. So John Gard's a former Assembly Speaker, ran for Congress in 06 and 08 unsuccessfully, and former State Treasurer. So he's got John Gard and he's got Kate Zieske, which clearly the Neumann folks are jazzed about because it is the first name that they can cite. I've always been a huge skeptic about endorsements across the board. I think I've been consistent about this. I just don't believe that most voters vote for somebody in a high-profile race because somebody else said to vote for them. Now, they might in a very low-profile race. For example, if you don't know anything about two candidates for judge, who endorses them is probably going to be very, very influential. But when you're dealing with candidates for the United States Senate or for governor, I don't know that because some former legislator says to vote for him, it makes a difference. But I can tell that from the Neumann folks, they believe they've kind of broken through the glass. They've at least got somebody. John Gard is out there. He's got his following. Kate Zieske's got their following. Is it a big deal? Really not really. In part because what it does, it kind of reminds you of the fact that they're kind of alone in that respect. Now, and I'm trying to be really fair here, if the Neumann folks can show that this is part of a trend, show that there's some momentum, that this is the beginning, that this is the crack in the dike, that other people have been waiting to go first and nobody else wanted to go first, and now John Gard's gone first, then maybe it will have some significance. I'm afraid that most people's response is going to be, what do you think most people's response to this is going to be? Basically, yeah. Scott's sort of shrugging his shoulders and go, You had to think for a moment who John Gard is? See, that's part of the problem in politics. You know, you can be somebody very, very, very important, and then a few years later people go, remind me who that was. He was the Assembly Speaker, and I should care about this. Within the Neumann campaign, I understand why they're jazzed about it, but I just don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, particularly, you know, when you see the kind of heavyweight stuff that Walker's been able to roll out. So there is that story. The second story, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, Scott Walker's on the front page of the Drudge Report today. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, it's a little bit disproportionate. The Drudge Report, probably the one most read site for conservative commentators and people in the media. They're going to be looking at this, and he's on the front page. His picture's on the front page, and it's a link to an ABC story, and I've linked to it that Scott Walker gets some serious love. This is what the ABC report is. Wisconsin Republicans have yet to nominate a candidate for governor. Indeed, the state's primary is not until September 14th, which is ridiculously late. But two national GOP heavyweights, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, are bullish on the prospects of Scott Walker, the self-described brown bag packing county executive of Milwaukee. The guy is a fantastic candidate, Jeb Bush says. The event that we did together, he gave a stump speech that sounded like it was the last 3 days of the campaign. I mean, he was on fire. It was. He's the real deal. The Wisconsin governor's race is one of the 2010 contests that could have implications in the 2012 White House race, much more so than senators. Governors tend to command the kind of state political machinery that can make a difference in a presidential contest. Although President Obama carried Wisconsin by 14 points over John McCain in 2008, the state was a major battleground in 2004 when John Kerry won the state by 1%, and in 2000 when Al Gore carried the state by less than 1%, a mere 5,708 votes. Walker, 42, has put anecdotes about his personal frugality at the center of his campaign. In all of his campaign messaging, he touts himself as somebody who drives a 1998 Saturn with 100,000 miles on it and who packs the same brown bag lunch before heading to the office to save money, 2 ham and cheese sandwiches on wheat with mayo. His first TV ad touts that he has given back $370,000 in salary over 8 years because he thought it was wrong for the county executive to be paid more than the state's governor. My wife was like, "We're doing what?" Walker said in his first TV ad. "But we believe the government spends too much, and that included my salary." Making political hay out of the lunch that he packs for himself, Walker has branded his events around the state as a part of a brown bag movement that has 3 tenets. 1, don't spend more than you have. 2, smaller government is better government. And 3, people create jobs, not government. Walker's movement has a website that includes images of brown paper bags with pointed messages on them, such as, "I'd be eating out if the government wasn't gobbling up all my money." Another message is, "We spent $780 billion on a stimulus plan, and all I got was this brown bag." And it goes on and on. The fact that ABC has done this story, and it's on the front page of the Drudge Report, is going to get Walker some national attention. In fact, the headline on the cut line under Walker's picture on the front page of the National Drudge Report is Barack Beware. So you have 2 developments today. Mark Neumann touts former Speaker John Gard and his wife Kate Sykes endorsing Neumann, and Walker's on ABC and the front page of the Drudge Report. I guess I'd give the edge to Walker.